very special welcome to all of you to AIMA and a very special session to unveil a brilliant new book on management. I'm delighted to welcome two very charismatic leaders with us today, Mr. Shekhar Gupta and Mr. DShivakumar. Shiv. Shiv, it's always a pleasure to have you with us, and that too in person this time, so thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving AIMA the privilege of hosting a session on your new book, Art of Management. You are one of the most recognizable CEOs in India, and you have led some of the iconic global companies in this part of the world, including Philips, Nokia, and PepsiCo. Before that, you spent many years with Hindustan Lever, managing many of its top brands. Now you lead corporate strategy of one of India's most global and diversified conglomerates, the AV Birla Group. A keen management and leadership thinker, you are a coveted speaker and writer on immediate business issues and emerging trends. Your previous book on career management, The Right Choice, has been a bestseller, and so is the new book, Art of Management, which is a big hit, making the top of the charts. Sachin Tendulkar has written the foreword of the book, and it's hard to get a better endorsement than that. A very warm welcome to you, Shiv. Mr. Shekhar Gupta, it's a real pleasure to have you join us today at AIMA. I think this is your first time in an auditorium, but no, you've been here.
I think I've been here.
Okay, so great to have you back. You are an editor, author whom we greatly respect, and we are glad to have you as a friend of AIMA. You have been a leading news person since the 1980s, and you have been synonymous with the golden periods of India Today magazine and the Indian Express newspaper. A versatile journalist, you've also made your mark on television with your interview-based show, Walk the Talk. Now, as the founder editor of the print, you're continuing to provide credible information and analysis to the public. And needless to say, you did get the Lifetime Achievement Award for DPR from AIMA last month. You are a popular author yourself. Your books include Walk the Talk, Decoding Politicians, Anticipating India, and Assam, A Valley Divided. Many thanks for agreeing to address the book release session with Shiv today, and a very warm welcome to you. Ladies and gentlemen, AIMA has a tradition of holding a discussion on newly released books, and we have hosted many celebrated authors in this very auditorium. However, today's session is particularly special because the author is one of our own. Shiv is a past president of AIMA and a big contributor to AIMA's focus on fostering new management thinking and practices in the country. Art of Management is a very timely book. The world is changing rapidly and unpredictably, and it has become hard to make sense of what is going on and to determine what one should do next. Managing self, organization, and business is becoming a dizzying task. The book offers vital pointers to realign one's priorities, capabilities, and values in a fast-churning world. The book is more than a documentation of experiences and ideas. It is a call to action for self-improvement as an individual, as a leader, and a business builder. The unique thing about Shiv's management writing is that he focuses on the individual and not on the grand theories. He writes as a philosopher friend and provides simple yet astute analysis and offers practical advice. His new book, Art of Management, can be of great help to anyone who cares about improving how they manage themselves, their teams, and their business. The diversity of people interviewed for the book enlarges the horizon of the reader, and the author's direct style makes reading the book a breeze. I would recommend this book to everyone, irrespective of the role or place in their organization. So with these words, over to you, Shiv, and to Shekhar to take this program forward, but I'll call Swati first.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I actually request you to kindly remain on this stage and join Mr. DShivakumar and Mr. Shekhar Gupta to release the book. Thank you once again, ma'am. Thank you, sir. May I now request Mr. DShivakumar to kindly talk about his book.
First slide up. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for traveling
whether it's from Delhi, whether it's from Gurgaon or Noida, wherever you've come from. It's a special day, at least for me. This is the first physical launch I'm doing of a book, and so I'm really happy that all of you are here. I'm going to spend a max of about 15 minutes talking about the book, why I wrote it, and what you can expect from it. Okay? So first up, thank you very much, Rekha. In this very hall, I've launched many books for other authors. My ex-boss Gopalakrishnan, I did it for him. Then once we did it with the minister, Mr. Javadekar. So many times I've been on this podium introducing the author. So for the first time, I'm introducing myself. So thank you very much, Rekha. I always joke with Rekha that I'm a son-in-law. Every time Rekha needs a speaker within the next 24-48 hours, she'll dial me wherever I am and say, hey, Shiv, you better land up. We need this. So she has first call on my time always. Thank you, Rekha. Thank you, Shekhar. You're an outstanding and inspirational journalist for all of us. And I follow your program regularly. And it's very insightful. It's amazing. I just asked Shekhar now, how much time does it take for you to prepare for your program? He said, Shiv, if it's Indian politics, it's 10 minutes. If it's anything else, it's much longer. AIMA and all of you here, AIMA is one of the institutions that I've been involved with actively since 2007-8. So I owe a lot to AIMA and all that they've done for me so far. Thank you. So here's the book. All of you have a copy of it. I've autographed many. I'm happy to autograph before the day is done. So please feel free to walk up wherever I am and take my signature. So question for all of you is, why this book? I wrote a book called Career Dilemmas, and I must tell you the story behind it. A number of publishers have approached me since 2003 or 4 to say, hey, you must write a book. And there was one lady from one of the publishing houses who came and said, look, this is the draft, this is what you should write about, etc. When you are a CEO, you think of esoteric topics like how are emerging markets going to be in the future, how does a multinational manage, etc. You get carried away, and I think I was in that sphere then. Okay, and I just didn't have the energy to go and write it because the whole thing was esoteric. Then one day, my current editor, Radhika Marwa, where are you, Radhika? Okay, Radhika is there. Okay, my wonderful editor. She said, hey Shiv, you have to write a book. I'm not taking no for an answer. And this is the timeline. You better finish this and give it to me. So that's the reason I started thinking about the book. But I still couldn't figure out what I should write about. This was my first book. So then I went and posed this thing in front of my wife over dinner. She said, you do so many speeches. What do people talk to you about at the end of a speech? What is on top of their mind? And I said, look, one of the things they talk to me about is their dilemmas and how do they manage their career dilemma. She said, why don't you write about that if that's what people are interested in? And so I started with 15 dilemmas, brought it down to 10, and that's how the book was released, which was the right choice. Once we released that book, then a lot of people wrote back saying, damn good, thank you. And some of the people who are in that book are here. There's Pavitra, there's Ruchika, other people who've been in that book. Thank you very much for your contribution in making it a success. People said, look, very good in terms of resolving dilemmas. Can you now tell us how to manage life and careers? We really need to understand that. Dilemma is one part. And that's the reason I picked this. And that's how the art of management was born. Because it is all about managing yourself. It's about managing your team. Should you have the privilege of leading a team. And it's about managing the business. When you have the privilege of managing a business. Those are the three aspects of how one manages something in life, in any discipline. Okay? So that's how this book was born. Thank you very much for, endorsing it, picking it up on e-com, etc. Okay? One of the questions I'm always asked, and this is in the context of the rapid change that we see, is who is responsible for my career and my life? This is a deep question which almost everybody asks me. It doesn't matter whether the person is 25, it doesn't matter whether the person is 50, it doesn't matter whether the person is 60. They always ask me this question, who, Shiv, is accountable? And after a lot of thought, one of the things I write in the book is that you are solely accountable, nobody else. You cannot outsource your life, you cannot outsource your career, you cannot outsource your emotional well-being to anybody. Let me explain why. And my explanation is simple. In the year 1930, the average lifespan of a company was 90 years old. In 1935, average lifespan 90 years old. Last year, the average lifespan of a company is between 12 and 18, depending on which data source you pick. So I believe in a future world, you'll have two types of companies. Companies which are legacy companies, 50, 100-year-old companies, and the second will be companies which are 10, 5, 15, 20 years old, who will morph, who will get bought over, who will die, whatever will happen. You have to make a choice, whether you go down the first route of a legacy company with its advantages and disadvantages, or you go down the second path and say, hey, I'll manage the uncertainty around it. It's entirely in your hands. So the company life is less than 20 years. On the other hand, let's switch. 25 years ago, if somebody joined a company, we would say, I want to retire in this company. Hire to retire was a normal thought process 25 years ago. Today, nobody thinks like that. The average tenure in a tech company is less than 2 years. The average tenure of a CEO in India today is less than 4 years. The average tenure of a chief marketing officer in any American company is 18 months. So, longevity of company doesn't exist. Loyalty of an employee doesn't exist. Earlier we had a contract. Today there's no contract. Every employee is a volunteer. Every volunteer is a free bird. He comes in, says, good, I enjoyed this for 2 years, 3 years, I move on. Finally, the shelf life of a concept is under 14 months. So there are new concepts all the time coming through. So if you're not up to date with the concept, you are in trouble, and serious trouble at that. You are quoting what you've learned 10 years ago, 15 years ago, in today's world, and people will yawn at you. And that's why, if you open the copy of the book in front of you, see whom it is dedicated to. Can all of you see it?
So dedicated to mentors, teachers, and so.
Absolutely. I've dedicated this book to all my teachers, all my mentors, all my colleagues, and all the institutions that I've been involved with. There are a number of my colleagues here from Hindustan Lever, Philips, ABG, PepsiCo, Nokia, all of you. I've learnt a hell of a lot from each and every one of you. I can't count everybody, I can scan. Thank you very much for giving me the gift of your time and the gift of your knowledge. And all the institutions that I have worked with, be it AIMA, be it IIM Calcutta, be it IIM Ahmedabad, be it IIM Udaipur, any of those, or ASCII or MMA, I owe a lot to each and every one of you. So that's the reason, because all of you taught me something. And my submission is, longevity doesn't exist, loyalty doesn't exist, but learning exists. Okay, so that is how I want to put it for you. Next, if you look at today's world, have I gone? Yeah. If I look at today's world, I think life will see very quick success, and equally it will see quicker failure. And this is not something that people are used to. I think people are going through a hell of a lot of anxiety in terms of when they hit the downturn. And the downturn can be pretty sharp. Events beyond your control. Some people might call it bad luck, some people might call it misfortune, okay, and some people from an astrological point of view might say it is karma written on my head, right, or forehead or whatever. But the fact is, you have to be very good, irrespective of how good you are. Bad luck can stop you. And ask all the Nokia people in this room, each and every one of them gave their heart and their life to building Nokia. Okay, we went from less than $1 billion company here to a $4 billion company in about 4 or 5 years. But what changed everything was one bad mistake of picking the wrong operating system. Okay, and all of us moved on for various things in life. So life will see quick success, equally it will see quicker failure. So it's all about managing yourself, managing your team, and managing your business. So in this book, I've had the privilege of putting together Sachin. So I've known Sachin for a few years. So I asked him, hey, Sachin, I'm writing this book. Will you be kind enough to write the foreword? So he asked me, Shiv, why would you want me to write the foreword? I said, you are one of India's longest serving cricketers. You have reinvented yourself continuously. You have been a thought leader. And that's exactly what my book is about. He said, okay, fair. He took a lot of time. We went through 4 or 5 edits. He wrote it personally. We drafted it, redrafted it, and I believe he's written a superb foreword, absolutely superb. And then there are people, 21 wonderful leaders. I have 9 accomplished women there. Of these 21 leaders, they come from 17 different disciplines. Okay, so it's not about business. It's about many aspects of life and how you manage life. They come from very different disciplines. Some of them are here in this room. There's Poonam Kaul, who is I think Bar largely responsible for the reputation I have in this country. She worked with me for 12 years as head of corporate communications, and every request which came, okay, most of the time would be no. Okay, and she would tell the journalist, what do you understand? Don't you understand N or O? It's no. She was not available, okay. So you see Aarti Kelshika, an author. One of the stats I recognized was that 97% of people who start a book don't finish it. So I got Aarti to write about the discipline of writing. Okay, how does one commit to writing a book and how easy or how difficult it is. There's Anju Seth, ex-director IIM Calcutta. There's Anusha, another good friend, Babita, CVL Srinivas, Devendra Chavla, part of AIMA of course, Gautam, Risbert, who is a steel company CEO, retired, who started the concept of digitization in 2005. He writes in this book about the pain of doing it. Everybody talks of digitization, and he talks about how difficult it is. Harsha, my good friend, okay. Then there is Rishi Bhattacharya, who recruited me to Hindustan Lever. One of the best thinkers that I've ever met in my life. He talks of strategy and how India has to think differently. K.K. Sridhar, my boss in Levers. Nisha Narayan, CEO of Red FM. N.S. Rajan, ex-Tatas. Okay. Olipeka Koloswa, my CEO and who recruited me to Nokia. It was the last of the 13 interviews I did for Nokia before they recruited me. Poonam Kaur, Renuka Ramnath of Multiples, a very successful entrepreneur. Subramaniam, who was my colleague in Levers. Shireen Ban, of course all of you know. Vikas Khanna, very special, a chef, Michelin-rated chef, outstanding thinker, great photographer, great innovator. Okay, and then of course General Malik. Okay, again he's been involved with AIMA. So of these 21 people, 8 are authors. 8 have actually contributed their ideas to other people. 9 wonderful women and 17 different industries and professions. So, in summary, I have exactly 2 minutes left of my 15 minutes. Okay, so before I end, first of all, thank you very much again for coming here and making my day. I want to especially thank the kids in this room. There's Debashi's daughter, there's Ahan. Where are you, Ahan? He's 10 years old. He read my last book, The Right Choice, start to finish. He's just 10 years old. And then there's Niharika here, okay, who is 14 years old. To all these people, why am I thanking them? Because on a Monday evening at 6 o'clock, when they can be with their friends or they can have screen time, they have given both those up, their friends and their screen time, to be here with us today. That is very good news for authors. It's very good news for readers. Okay, so thank you very much, Niharika. Thank you very much, Ahan, and thank you very much, Devash's daughter. Okay, so thank you, Penguin team. But for you, Radhika, I don't think this book would be anywhere near completion. Okay, Radhika has a wonderful, gentle way of nudging you without being a pain. Thank you. I really learn a lot from you every time you send me the mail. Okay, thank you, Poonam. I know where are you, Poonam? Good to see you. Thank you for building my reputation over years and guarding it. When we are discussing the ideas for the launch of the book, etc., in fact, Penguin has a question at the end of every conversation. They say, Shiv, who's the author, you or Poonam? Because Poonam is more excited about the book than I am. Okay. Thank you, Autumn Grey. They are not represented here because Amina is doing some exam and so she couldn't come here from Bangalore. They've been absolutely spectacular in building my last book, The Right Choice, as also this book. Thank you, media. You've always been kind to me. You've always given me the benefit of your doubt. I appreciate that. And thank you so many old colleagues. Okay, it means a lot that you're here. And I don't think I can repay you for all the learning that you gave me. And finally, thank you, AIMA. As AIMA's son-in-law, it's an absolute pleasure here to stand and do this presentation. Okay, thank you and all the very best.
Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Mr. Shekhar Gupta, Editor-in-Chief, The Print, to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you. As somebody who's always been in awe of people who can manage, I'm deeply honored to be here, to be speaking at this book release. I'm in awe of people who can manage for many reasons, including the fact that in my early days, when everybody was searching for a job in mid-70s or a career in mid-70s, everybody said, if nothing else, bank, PO, or get old enough to sit for IAS, or the part of the country I came from, okay, enroll for NDA or IMA. And also MBA had become very fashionable. And I figured that needed math, right? So I presume that anybody who does management and who's been to a management institution knows math. Now, I have to tell you the truth. I almost never crossed the 40 mark limit out of 100 in math. So my father would always tell me that you are a blot on the Bania clan. You never got more than 40 in math out of 100. You have a hole in your palm, so all the money that would come will disappear. You and you eat everything that moved, not moves, but moved. Because I covered the Northeast for Indian Express at the height of trouble in the Northeast when I was in my 20s, and you ate everything that moved. So I hold management people in awe. Also, I did manage to pass written examination or written test for many management courses, but always failed group discussion, etc., 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 because the English was so bad. So one, anybody who's been through a management institution knows math. Second, his or her spoken English was enormously better than mine. So I'm very happy. I've done many book releases. It's the first time that I've also done book releases for CEOs, founders, but this is the first book on management. So I'm very honored. Second, you mentioned to me all the shortening spans of ideas, concepts, loyalties, life of companies, life of brands. A lot of these come from our short attention spans. Our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. There are times when you wish you had maybe 2 eyes in the back, 2 eyes on the side, but you've just got 2 eyes and you've just got 1 brain. So you're constantly processing so much, and then your head carries out a natural selection of what it wants to pay attention to, what it doesn't. And that is how all of us human beings work, and that applies to writing books and reading books also. So reading books, I found, I struggle to read books. So very often I read books and I say, these big, thick books that look very impressive, they are great for your bookshelves. But when will I read it, right? And then you start worrying, when will I read it, when will I read it? And those books get caught. But the books I love are the books I can finish. And those are books which you can open almost anywhere and start reading. So you don't have to worry about why I reached up to here. Will I lose track of my story or the thread of my story? Do I have to turn the page? Do I have to put a bookmark? No. There are lots of books which you can open anywhere and start reading. And you carry them on your travel. You read them at night. In no time, you end up finishing them. So this is one of those books. You can read it anywhere, start reading from there. And of course, for me, it's a bit sobering because I find that a lot of the attributes that good managers, good leaders should have, I'm uniquely lacking in all of those. For example, time management. Now, one of my big problems in this city is I have now been a political journalist in this city for 17 and 20, 39 years. 1983, I came to Delhi to work for India Today. And one of the things which has improved in this city, but which has become a big challenge for me, that this city has become a lot more punctual than it used to be. Which means the political class here has become much more punctual than it used to be. Every minister is on time, right? Every minister is on time. Every opposition leader is on time. Then you check out Mumbai. Now you find film stars are on time, right? In fact, I forget the last film star who kept us waiting. I might have kept some waiting for a few minutes. Right? But all film stars are on time. So this has become a very punctual world. So for people like me also, who are very old-fashioned, and See, we journalists we thrive in being chaotic because our lives, the story depends on the choices other people make. Our story doesn't depend on choices we make. We can't choose for them. So sometimes when I want to flatter ourselves, I say that our lives are like those of fighter pilots. So you keep training, sitting. Then one day suddenly the enemy comes and you have to get into combat, and that goes on for a few days. So we also act like that when the big story breaks. But we've all had to change. I have had to change. I was 5 minutes late today, I know. But I have a good reason for that, which I will not eat into my time by explaining. But 5 minutes is an incredible amount of improvement for me. Incredible improvement. And I do understand that successful people manage time very well, and the examples here are very good. And what applies to management also applies to sport, because what is cricket but timing? What is batting but timing? How does a man like Virender Sehwag go from being a hero to zero in the space of 1 year? Because he's a hand-eye coordination man, right? The moment the gift of timing goes away, the hand-eye coordination slows down, he's not the same cricketer anymore. You can see, I suspect I see some of that with Virat Kohli now, although I hope this is wrong, and he will fix it. But time is very, very important in management of time, because another lesson I take from this is, again, it's a reminder that it's not just your time. It's also the time of those at the other end. This is people who work for you, people who you work for, people who you are going to meet, people who are waiting for decisions from you. All their lives are linked to this. So I can tell you one post-pandemic decision that I made with my life is that I will never catch a flight running. I never ever did not catch a flight running. If I was early, I said, ठीक है यार, अभी तो 1.5 घंटा है, किसी को बुला लेते हैं यहाँ पे. Then I'll think of a hotel close by, some coffee shop, अरे तुम आज ज़रा बात करते हैं. So I'll always wait to be shoehorned into a flight. And then people who care for me would tell me that, look, you stress out everybody. You stress out your office, your staff. You stress out people at the airport and airline companies. You stress yourself out. Don't do it. And I find now, I have just taken this Saturday 2 flights to Nagpur and back. These are my 27th flights since the pandemic, where I have reached well enough in time to surprise my family, right? So time management, talent management, again, that's a lesson that comes out. Fame management, that's very important. So if you read Shireen Bhan, it's fame management, right? Because TV journalism is about fame. It's about everybody knowing your face. It's about losing anonymity. And it's one thing for a Tendulkar to lose anonymity because he's in the show, he's in a performing sporting business. But it's very disconcerting for media people to lose anonymity. And different people handle it in different ways. Now, I will tell you, I thrive on lived experiences, that whenever I go through airport security, I raise my arms to be checked out. So once the sub-inspector from CISF told me, सर आप बार बार आते हैं, जब इतना फ्लाइट लेते हैं, आप हमेशा आके अपने हाथ उठा देते हैं. तो मैंने कहा और क्या करूँगा, नहीं तो आप बोलोगे उठाओ, इससे अच्छा मैं अपने आप उठा देता हूँ. उसे कह नहीं, लेकिन बाकी जो बहुत VIP जर्नलिस्ट आजकल आते हैं, जो पहचाने हुए हैं, उनको अगर हम कह देना कि हमको आपको चेक करना है, तो गुस्सा हो जाते हैं. कहते हैं अबे जानता नहीं मैं कौन हूँ. सो हम कहते हैं सर आप जानते तो हैं, लेकिन अब क्या करें, करना पड़ेगा. So it's very difficult to manage fame as well. That's also a craft. Now, craft of management is what you learn at management schools. I'm happy also that this book is titled The Art of Management. Because craft, and there is a craft, there is a science to everything, and then there is the art. And the art does not come from formal education. The art comes from experience, and art comes from introspection, and also from having some humility. Because if you think that I am perfect, that everything I touch turns to gold, look at my CV, I have so many successes in my life. I have seen those types. I've seen those types. I've seen some of those types getting dismantled also by themselves or by the marketplace, because the market is very, very, very cruel. Now look at any government, look at any state, because my life is about looking at governments and politics. No matter how much power does a state have, they can pulverize the judiciary, the media, the election commission, public opinion. They can hold great sway over public opinion. They can run over a neighboring country as Putin is doing right now. But there is one entity that no power can control, and that entity is the market. So see Erdogan right now in Turkey. He's so powerful, right? He turned around Turkey's politics from being secular to becoming deeply Islamic again. He declared Hagia Sophia once again to be a mosque. He brought back the hijab, right? He got enormous popularity, enormous vote. But he said because he had so much power, he could also fight inflation by diktat. So as inflation went up, he kept on ordering his central bank to lower interest rates, hoping that growth will come. Now this simply doesn't work, and your power doesn't change the realities of market. If the central bank governor did not do it, he fired the central bank governor. Today you have a situation where the central bank is offering money at 19%, whereas inflation in this country is 65%. So you see what's happening. Market is taking its revenge. So the market is a very cruel master. And that's why people like us, some of us in Indian journalism, we are very few, we believe in free markets. We believe that no matter what flaws the free markets have, they are deeply flawed and they need a lot of correction. The market may be deeply flawed, but it's still the fairest or the least unfair master of all. Less unfair than the bureaucrat, less unfair than the politician, less unfair than the judge, and less unfair than our whims, because the market doesn't respect that. So this is also a kind of distillation of a lot of those success stories. Because think of someone like General Malik. Many of these are people I know, but I would say most of these are people I don't personally know. So I know Sachin, I know General Malik, I know Harsha, Shireen, many, but they're Renuka Ramnath. I did learn a lot from her when we did that arrangement with the Indian Express and ICICI Venture when she was there. That made the Express debt free. She's frighteningly punctual. She's punctual like these Japanese and Korean ambassadors. Because my first experience with them was at the Express when they'd come to meet you. So if they were coming to meet you at 12, they'll come and park their cars. Their fellows will park their cars at 11:50 outside our building. And for 8 minutes, the guy would be working on his files or on his phone or something. Exactly 2 minutes of time, he'll walk in. So Renuka is a bit like that. So there are many people I know, but there are many people in fact, more people that I don't know. General Malik. From him, we learn the moral aspect of leadership. Now, any warfare, Kargil or any place, who fights a war? It's young officers, young Jawans, usually in their 20s who fight a war. Who gives the orders to fight? It's the generals in their 50s and very often in their 60s. So the generals have been done there, done that. Right now, the general's life is not being risked unless you are a nutcase Russian general in Ukraine who talks on mobile phones. So Ukrainians track it and send snipers to take you out. So that's how a dozen of them lost their lives, right? But you have to be extraordinarily stupid as a general to be caught by a sniper in the back because you're not on the front line. Now, then to order young people to go and risk their lives. So this 25-year-old Captain Saab or a 28-year-old Major Vikram Batra who's assaulting a peak, right, with 50 or 100 soldiers, knowing that many of them will not come back. Now, they must have total faith in the commanders who given them that order. Similarly, the commanders also must wait very carefully. It's not just that मैंने तो मरना नहीं है, सबको मरने दो. This is real life is not catch-22. How many of you have read catch-22? Everybody uses the expression catch-22. That's about, a lot of it is corruption and cynicism in the armed forces. So most generals are not like that, but how do you then send 100 people to assault a peak, knowing that many of them will not come back, unless you are very sure, one, that the plan is logical, they possibly may succeed. Number two, that you have minimized risk for them to the extent possible. Number three, that you've given them all the weapons that they need, that you can provide. Number four, that the objective you are after is worthwhile. So that to me is the highest calling in leadership. Because, ultimately, Americans say a lot of stupid things, but they also say a lot of smart, memorable things. So one of the things the Americans say, and which I keep close to my heart, is that the only legacy you leave behind is people. It's not products, it's not businesses, it's people. So I find I've been around in media for a long time. People work for us, people leave, and as Shiv just now said, now people leave in 2 years, 3 years, less, more, whatever. So when people leave, my reaction always is, it doesn't matter. I'm like Asrani in the film Sholay. हमारे आदमी चारों तरफ फैले हुए हैं, right? So wherever you see people in leadership position, if the people have come worked with us at some time, that means we've done something right. And I can see from this hall and from elsewhere and from reputation that Shiv has done exactly that, and he's not done yet. Now, before I conclude, I shall tell you one more thing. Nokia. How many of you still use a Nokia phone? Okay. So what I have with me right now is an iPhone. So the iPhone is my default phone. But in my drawer, I keep a Nokia phone. For the longest time, I used what was it, 6310i, right? In fact, when India ran out of them, Indian market ran out of them, I'll get them from flea markets. When flea markets ran out of them, I'd get them from East Europe, because sometimes people would find them in Romania, Russia, and there was a parallel market in those. I now keep one ever since I figured out the Pegasus business. Because I knew, so maybe this is the way to revive the Nokia phone now. Say that this is the phone that even Pegasus can't catch, because you can't put any bug in that phone, because the phone has no brains, right? So products have their life cycles, companies have their life cycles, cricketers have their life cycles, soldiers retire, brands have their life cycles, brands disappear. So I'm of the generation that ate biscuits from a company called JB Mangaram, right? And I'd forgotten all of that. One day I was driving out of Bangalore to go towards what is called as, I think, Natya Kendra or something. There's a dance academy, to interview these two wonderful Odissi dancers for Walk the Talk. And I found one old building, and it said JB Mangaram and Sons. And I said, stop, right? What are they doing here? So that company shut down a long time back, but obviously the property, the factories, and some litigation. So it's sitting there. So brands can disappear from your lives completely. But the legacy you create is people who worked with you, because they will then run different brands. And it is that will make you remembered. Sachin Tendulkar will be remembered by people, the new stars who grew under him. Dhoni, even more than Sachin, would remember for the stars who grew under him. There is somebody else whose name I won't mention, because many of you sponsor products with BCCI, who will be remembered by many of the careers he destroyed, right? And continues to destroy, right? Continues to destroy. So those things, market mein sabko pata hai. When I was a journalism student in 1975-76, that was the peak of the emergency in Chandigarh at Punjab University. So we had an old teacher who was a freedom fighter, who was a communist freedom fighter, now working post-retirement. He would come in with a solar topi. And it's a question that a lot of people ask me now, what is the accountability that you people have? Who holds you accountable? And I tell them the same story. He said, look, आप ऐसे बिजनेस में हैं कि जब सुबह अखबार निकलेगा ना तो आप शहर के मेन चौराहे पर सब नंगे खड़े होंगे, तो सारे शहर को आपकी असलियत पता चल जाएगी. So that is true of every leader and every manager as well. Because, I know that you've had a marvelous PR person, but a PR person can make a good reputation or a good record better. Because I deal with this at the other end. And I deal with PR persons who try to make bad reputations and bad records better. And I can tell you that हम लोगों का भी एक bullshit detector होता है. So sometimes we get it wrong. Occasionally we get it wrong. But more often than not we get it right. For example, I will tell you Ramalinga Raju. I'd keep running into him in conferences. In fact, there was a conference at Asian Davos at Dalian in China, where I had chaired a panel which had Mr. Modi as Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh then, and Ramalinga Raju also. And after that session, he said, Shekharji, you have me on this panel. See, I speak very well. You featured on your show Narayan Murthy, Nandan Nilekani, Azim Premji, even Vivek Paul. What is Vivek Paul? He's just a CEO. I am a founder. I founded a great company. Why don't you feature me? And for some reason, I said, doesn't pass the smell test. So, bach gaye. Right? Bach gaye. Similarly, Vijay Mallya. I said, no, I am not convinced. So, bach gaye. But there was one case in which I got it wrong. That is Vikram Akula, who was running this big microfinance company. And I will tell you, I have never seen a young entrepreneur protected by a larger army of PR people. And I should have known even then that anybody at this age, seemingly doing a good job in microfinance, working with really poor people, sees the need to spend so much money to be protected by like this Praetorian guard of PR people. There has to be something wrong, but I got it wrong and I still regret it. So, good reputation, good track record, his legacy I think we can read here, we can watch here, and his skills at telling a story and through the story teaching you something in a book. See, management book, I have never read a management book. Never, because I think it's not for me, right? But this is a book. This is a wellness guru's book. So please check it out. I'm sure all of you have read it, or all of you have a copy, have him sign it. And I think a lot more people will read this than most management books or management memoirs in India.
Thank you so much, sir.